All right, we are live. It's Thursday. Welcome back to my show, The Positive Effect. I'm April Sobral. I am a leadership coach, founder of Retail U, and author of a leadership book called The Positive Effect. And every week I jump on here on LinkedIn, podcast, as well as Spotify, so you can find us there, subscribe, and have amazing conversations and celebrate leaders that are making a positive impact on the teams that they lead. And this week, I am really excited, Mike, to have you on my show. So welcome to The Positive Effect.
Thank you.
I worked with you a couple of years ago. I met you when I first started working at Ardene, right? So
Yeah.
we worked together a little bit. So I just want to preface that. But, I love these conversations. And, we've talked about leadership many times. And I thought it'd be great to get you on and just like share your journey, your career experience, and like pick your brain about leadership because you have an amazing positive disposition and have the ability to engage your team positively. And I witnessed that firsthand. So I'm really excited just to talk to you today about your career and share your lessons learned and insights with our audience.
Well, thank you.
So if you want to start off, Mike, just tell us who you are, for those watching, I forgot to say this at the beginning, but if you're joining the chat, please put your name in, tell us where you're coming from. And if you see this in your feed, share it with as many people as you can. So with that, let's jump into your career because you've worked in retail, also like different industries as well, but you've been in and out of it. So walk us through your career. Like, where did it start? How did you get into retail? And then we'll go into your leadership lessons learned and talk a little bit more about that.
Okay, sounds good. So basically, it started with Bell Mobility, and just before retail, I was got into this customer service field. I worked my way up in the customer service field within Bell Mobility. I started doing more interactions with the marketing team and doing incentives for the Eastern Canada region and for mobility. From there, I got invited to work with another project where we opened up the first multi-product solution center at Bell. We had all of the different businesses and everything was silo before that, and now it became more centralized. Great team, a lot of information there. A lot got interested in project management, business analysts from that perspective, and did some certificates in that afterwards. From there, I joined the executive office, which is basically an escalation office, the highest one at Bell Canada. My team was in Toronto, Ottawa, and Montreal, so I was spending different times. 2 weeks in Montreal, 1 week in Toronto, a couple of like a week and a half in Ottawa. Uh, and from there, I got invited to get into the retail. So I worked with Group Dynamite and just jumped into I got the crazy world of retail from there. So you're going with a company like Bell Canada that's been around at that point around 150 years, and then jumping into a company that was, for I don't know 30 maybe at that time. So a lot different, but a lot more dynamic, a lot faster pace. And from there, I was there for maybe a couple of months, and I got as an operation manager, and I got asked to join an ERP. So a group where they were just gutting out the system that we were using, and I became the business lead or business prime for an inventory management system that we were going to use in the stores. Also, we also had the POS system. We changed our POS system, so I got involved in that. One of the things I always did was take people from the field because we were doing this for the store managers, for everybody that was working in the field. So I always made sure to build my team with
Mm.
people from the field. So they taught me more and more about the business, where I taught them more about maybe the project management, business analyst side, all the different meetings, trying to get them to sit still when they were used to moving all the time. That was a lot of fun. But they did amazing. Still a lot of great friends from that period. From there, I was Group Dynamite. Then I had a little bit of a break, and then I went to Ardene from there again as an operation manager. Had a lot of fun there. We, different projects, a lot of projects, but always in regards to improving the lives of the store managers, the store
Mm.
employees, and giving them better access to tools that was going to simplify their lives. So I really made it a point to try and understand their reality, or get them to get me to understand their reality. From there, I took, I went back to, I was in the United States for about a year. I took up with a startup company, helped them get all their processes in place in regards to, with COVID. There was a spike in the amount of people that were working from home, and this was a company that helped, set up their wiring for working with AT&T a lot.
Mm.
And I worked there for a year. It didn't really work out, and then I got an opportunity to come back to Montreal with my family and everything. And now I'm working with Groupe CH in Montreal, basically the Montreal Canadiens, Eventco, and Spectra. Again, within always the customer service, I guess certain retail, we do sell tickets and so on with all of the small venues. And I'm basically building a new team from almost, well, basically scratch. There was no management team left, and I took the team from scratch, and it's something I enjoyed doing from day one, working with people, staying positive, and helping them develop themselves, as well as impacting the company and the business at the same time. So that's in a nutshell.
I love it. So lots of customer service, lots of field leadership, working with them, lots of like streamlining operational processes. But at the end of the day, fundamentally building a team and leading people,
A
right?
hundred percent, always about the people. It's 100% about the people from the get-go.
So what's one of the best leadership lessons you've learned early on in your career that kind of carried you through and gave you this foundation of being a positive leader?
The best the tips is really in regards to just trusting your people. You know what I
Mm.
mean? And every job that I've always, like, when I've been there for a while, I've always told the next person coming in, if I got an opportunity to meet them, if you allow my team to work with you, you're going to be good for a long time. You know what I mean? You're going to be
Ah.
good. You're going to be able to survive, because when you trust your people, you empower them, and that allows them to grow, and that allows them to make sure things are working well, whether you're there or not.
So do you, so trusting people. I like what you said about like the next person coming in. I've never actually had anybody say that to me as an incoming leader taking over a team. Like, I think I'm going to write that one down, Mike, because like
Yeah,
if you've built a good team, you would hope that that leader would like, I know everybody comes in with a fresh perspective and different,
yeah.
different lens, but that's a great way of looking at it. And now you're building a team from scratch again. So what's your approach to building a team?
It's really about, the first thing I want to do is I want to get to know my team. I want to get to know my people, because nobody cares how much you know until they know how much you care.
Hmm.
Right. So the first part of it is really just taking the time to get to know them. Those first, go for lunch and have those discussions together about, where have they come from? Who are they? Do they have family? How many brothers and sisters? Are they married? Because before they're my employee, before they're the Group CH's employees, they're somebody's daughter or son. There's somebody's maybe sister. There's somebody's mom. There's somebody's wife or husband. So I want to really get to know them first, and then once I know them, then I have a better understanding of who they are, and then I could lead them better. I could lead them in a positive way, much better. So I always want to get to know the person first, and then once they realize that I'm on their team, we're part of the same team, then I'm able to work with them better, and I'm able to you know for example, I've always worked, when I've had a strong leader that has taken interest in me. It didn't matter how, something has to get done. It didn't matter if I was more tired or whatever. I just wanted to do it because I knew this person, you know, deserved to getting the 120% of me. And that's how I
Mm.
look at my employees. That, I want them to realize that I'm worthy of their effort as well.
I think that's so great. And I think that's so important what you just said. Like you'll give 120% to a leader that you actually really want to work for. I made a post on LinkedIn yesterday, actually, and on my socials, and it was about mental health awareness, because May is mental health awareness, right?
Yep.
And the impact of a leader can have on somebody's mental health. If you think about that, you work 40, 50 hours a week, generally most of the population,
Yeah.
right? And they work for a person, not a company. And the impact of not having a positive leadership or a positive culture can actually take a toll on people. And that post that I shared just keeps getting shared and tagged. It's like one of the most shared posts this week, because I guess it resonated with people that, you know, I was listening to something the other day about, like, we all have negative biases naturally. Like, it's just wired into our brain to protect ourselves, right? If you think way back when. And so when we have that leader that, like, kind of compounds that, it can really create self-doubt and knock our confidence down. Like, you agree with that? It sounds like you do.
Yes, 100%, 100%. Especially when you're coming in as a new leader, um, and it's something actually you taught me, right? When we're working together, and I use it every day. It's like a positive intent. You have to come in to work, to your life, to whatever you're doing with positive intent. So if you're coming in with a positive intent, and nobody, you're not out to get anybody,
Yeah.
like you're really out to get the results that we're looking for and stuff like that. So if you stay with positive intent, eventually everybody's going to realize that you know that's what we're here for. We're not here, and when they come into work, and what we strive for from the get-go is that we want them to, let's, for example, right now, customer service or box office, face-to-face selling with customers. A lot of times, if they're coming to the box office or they're calling us, they're not calling us to say, "Oh, you guys did a fantastic job. We just wanted to take a second to let you know." They're not calling in for that. They're calling because there's an issue, right? And so, a lot of my employees, that's what they're dealing with day in and day out. So when we come into work, that environment has to be a positive one to compensate for what
Mm.
they're hearing on the phones and stuff, or in face to face. So even everything about that environment has to be as positive as possible.
What do you find yourself coaching on the most right now?
Coaching, that's a great question. I think just to uh, to just put the customer first. You know what I mean? To understand who is your customer,
Mm.
and understand that, you know um, I don't even call them, because I call them guests. Who is your guest? I want everybody to kind of think about it as, who is your guest. So right now, it's just about coaching and understanding that everybody, there's a level of experience that we want our customers to have, or our guests to have, once they come to it. So I'm coaching a lot in regards to that, just understanding that, also how to communicate in a positive fashion, and the words that you want to use, and how you want to use it when you're talking to, even to your a peer.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, I think words and body language really make a difference, because I say, like, there's all things in the way that you deliver things. This is what I do a lot of coaching on. It's like,
Mhm.
you could say bad news, right? Like, I had, you were just talking before we got on the show, but I'd caught up with somebody who used to be on my team 20 years ago, last week, because I'm in New York, and he said to me, "You demoted me," and I was like, "Oh my god, I didn't even remember that, because I've managed so many people." But he said, "But April, the way that you did it, it was like I couldn't be mad. I was like grateful, like you did me a favor." And now, long story short, he's a nurse and he's doing it really, really well. But it's always in the way that you deliver and words, and I think it starts with the self-awareness, right? Like,
100%.
really being self-aware.
Yeah, that's a great message there, because a lot of people, when you talk about positive leadership, they for some reason, they tend to look at it and say maybe that's a weaker type of leadership, where it's absolutely not. Yes, there's a little bit more effort and time involved to get to know people and so on, but the same message, the same, clear communication. It doesn't mean that there's no disciplinary actions when necessary, but it's how did you do that? Were there clear expectations in regards to what their job tasks were? What did you do? How did you communicate that to them? So I've let people, terminated employees. I've given disciplinary suspensions, and these employees are still talking to me to this day. Nobody tried to get me afterwards. So
Oh,
it
that's such
doesn't.
a, it's so good to hear that, though, because I think I've been must like myth busting what positive leadership is for a long time. Like, for a long time, I felt there's something wrong with me. I'm so people orientated, and I'm sitting next to other leaders that are just like results, results, results. And I am very results driven, always
I
have
know.
been.
Yes,
And you worked with me, right? Like, if we walked out of meetings, I'd be like, Mike, can I have a coaching conversation with you? And let's just talk about that.
that's right.
Right. So I think it's not like about letting things slide. And this is the thing. I say this all the time. Like, I am an operational expert, like, and I drive results, but at the same time, I balance it with the people and it's an equal balance to me. But I think that we have to demystify that. That's why I love what you just said. Like, positive leadership doesn't just mean like you just forgive everything and that's it. It's like not hokey pokey. It's like, it's being clear. People want clear expectations. I find myself coaching a lot of people on how to set clear expectations because they're not very good at it.
Yeah.
You know, it's really interesting. So, I mean, if you, I've got my questions in front of me and I've got a whole list of questions that I want to ask you, but I'm looking at time. So I'm like, So how important is for you to look after yourself? It's Mental Health Awareness Month. Like, as a leader, what are some best practices that Mike does to like keep himself, you know, in that positive mindset so that you can have that impact on your team?
That's it is so important. I listen to podcasts, and I'm forgetting the name right now, but every morning, and the one I listened to today, the gentleman was just talking about being not worrying about if your team is up, but more worrying about, are you up? If
Mm,
you're up, your team will be up, right? And it's your job to make sure you're up, you're pepped, and then you kind of, that type of enthusiasm gets carried over to your team at the same time. So what I do is every morning, just to for my mental stability, and because it can get hectic, is first thing I do when I get up in the morning, I'll get up about half an hour to 45 minutes earlier. I take at least 10 to 20 minutes of meditation time. So I'll meditate the first thing in the morning. And then once I've finished that, I have affirmations that I will read. I'll read, I have them, I'll read my affirmations every morning. What are my goals? What are my, not just work goals, but life goals and
mm,
personal goals, so I'm making sure I'm heading towards them. And then I'll get up and I'll do, you know, two sets, exercise, some stretching, some push-ups, some crunch, like
yeah.
planks or whatever, just to, limber up, before I get going. And then, then it's a working out in the morning or in the afternoon. But every morning it's like at least that, just so that I'm in the right mindset. When I'm headed to work, and when I'm heading to work, I'm listening to podcasts about different things, or different audible books that are, and it could be anything. Sometimes I might really want to learn something new, and the other time I might just want to be entertained.
Mm.
And so it could vary, but that's basically what I do on a regular. I might take a Sunday off, but otherwise,
I
yeah,
remember that about you. You had meditation in your calendar, and
yeah,
you were like one of the only people that I'd ever worked with in retail that had meditation in their calendar and those positive affirmations. But
yes,
I think what you're saying is so key. It's like, if you're the leader, you set the tone, you set the energy, and energy is real. We all know when something feels like a bad vibe,
yeah,
and we all know when something feels good, and we want our customers to feel good. So therefore we have to, transfer that. And so I think that's really important. And it's a daily practice, right? Like, we don't wake up happy every day. I mean, some
ex-
people do,
yeah. Good for
but
them, eh?
yeah, yeah, I know, like, it's an effort. Like, my first my goal for May was, my intention was to be more satisfied on a daily basis and like appreciate the small things, you
That's
know,
right.
not like make more sales. I was like, no, Mental Health Awareness Month, I'm going to put some self-focused goals, because I know that if I do practice that, my month is going to go better and everybody else is going to feel it around me.
Yeah, yeah,
Mm,
100%. And I think for me, what the meditation does, and it's not always, I'm not always able to, stay the focused or whatever, but what it does do is that when something happens, it allows me to take that second and remember positive intent. It just pops into my head, positive intent. And I take that second to say it, and then you know, chances are what's going to come out next is going to be a lot easier than what initially, the initial uh, reaction might have been
mm.
at that point. And then
Uh,
yeah,
Positive intent. I learned that when I worked at Apple. Actually, it was one of the things that they drilled into us. Whenever anybody was going to give us feedback, or we had to give feedback, we were trained, like, have positive intent. So when you go into it, exactly that. It doesn't mean to say that you're not holding people accountable, you're not having tough conversations, but you're just assuming positive intent. It's really hard for people to do that, Mike, because most people are judgmental. Make assumptions about people, go in thinking that they already have the answer, which sometimes we do.
Yep.
But yeah, that positive intent. And I do believe that meditation makes you pause, exactly what you just said.
Yep. And
Takes a
that's
moment.
it's exactly why I do it, so that, because it is, it's human nature. I don't believe it is to be like immediately, like we're humans and something happens and we're going to react to it. So I try to, if I get that second, just to, stay positive, then I'm going to hopefully, do the right thing, whatever comes out next.
Oh, you do. I've worked with you. I can see that. And like you have a very friendly disposition, which I think is very important for people. They feel like that they can approach you, you know?
Yeah. Well, thank you.
Yeah. Who is your mentor? Like if, like as leaders, we have teams that report into us and we have like, a million things going on the time. But do you have a mentor?
Yes, I do. I do. I definitely have a mentor. I don't, you know, uh, I believe it's important to have mentors in different aspects of your life. My mentor, I wonder if he still sees it as that, but I consider him my mentor, is Daniel. To me, he's my mentor. The reason why is that very successful person, not just at work but with his family. He was one of the first people that I worked with that at a high level, that his family was, so important for him. I saw him make certain decisions, career wise, or that influence more his had a more positive effect on his family, and that's how I want it to be. And anytime when I was younger, it was a person that intimidated me, because the guy's like six something, and he's just, it's just like, uh, but once you get to know this friendly giant with teeth, because he still gets the job done 100%, but he's just a person that puts his family first, but also puts the people that's working for him
Mm,
first. But no
mm.
nonsense, no nonsense.
Well, but
Yeah,
we appreciate that, right? Like that
100%.
clear, that goes back to those clear
Yeah,
expectations and clear
yeah.
direction,
I
right?
don't have
So,
to guess. I know the expectations. I don't have to guess.
hmm so what's a piece of advice that somebody's given you along the way? Is there a piece of advice that just like stuck in your head? I've had multiple of those throughout my career that just like I just sticks in my head when somebody said it to me
Yeah.
in a moment of like clarity. But like, what's a piece of advice that somebody's given you?
It's almost a situation that happened. I was working for Bell Mobility. I had one of I actually probably consider this gentleman. I learned a lot from just watching him go. His name is Ardene, and the guy was just amazing at the work, because again, another person that put his team first. You know, and there's one time I went to see him, and I go, Don, I go, my goodness, how do you do it? Like you're just on the ball and this and that. And I just wanted to get a piece of advice. And it really was an opportunity for him to, oh my God, Mike, well, you sit down, young, you know, and and I'll tell you, and he turned to me and he goes, Mike, he goes, it's all about uh, information. He goes, Mike, if you had the same information that because I'm privy to more info than you are. And he goes, if you had the same information as I have, you would make the same decisions. And
Wow.
I was it just like, oh my goodness, it's just like amazing. And I really learned that it was amazing. That was just, to me, it was like about making sure before you make a decision that you gather up as much info as you
Mm.
can, and that's going to help you make the right decision. So
That's good advice.
yeah,
Because many of us that are results driven or have to react to things feel the pressure to make decisions
yeah,
sometimes that we're not ready to make.
yeah,
And the last 2 years, let's face it, has been 2 years of like winging it. It's
yeah,
like,
hundred
what
percent.
decision are we going to make today? Like, what's happening today? And like dealing with a lot of ambiguity, right? So I guess slowing down and having more information. Interesting. What's a piece of feedback that you received once from somebody that you had to do something with? I love that question. I'm like, I've had feedback along my way where I've had to do something with it, and I'm being like, that was a good lesson learned. Is there anything that?
Oh my goodness, there's so much, like there's feedback that I received that I had to. Uh, I think the hardest. I think it was my first team lead role at Bell Mobility, and I didn't get the job at first, but I remained very positive, and I just worked harder. And within 2 weeks, they offered me the position again. Um, but I just, for whatever reason, just wasn't fitting in. It just wasn't fitting in. And I eventually you kind of feel that, and you're kind of wondering, is this for me or not for me? And um, the feedback that I got, it was actually wasn't. I think it kind of defined my career afterwards, right? So I basically went to go see my boss at the time, and I asked her, I said, she goes, I go, I feel that I could do more. I feel like I'm not, that, like, can you, I went to ask for help at that point, and I was about to leave on vacation. And at that point, instead of getting the help, I kind of got told, well, you know what? I agree with you. I think you're not doing as well. And I think that, I think you, during your vacation, you really need to decide if this is the job for you. And I went, okay, well, on my list, number one thing, not to ever tell my employee check, right?
Yeah.
But, but at the end of the day, it made me go back inside myself and made me, you know, decide, is this for you?
Mm,
Is she right? Is she wrong? And my decision was that she was wrong,
mm.
right? And I came back with a vengeance, with something to prove. So, um,
Oh, I love that. That's
y-
that's
you know,
such great.
and from there, I moved up. I got promotions. I got asked to do different projects, and it was just like my team became the number. Like anyways, a lot of good positive things happened from. You think that maybe that was a negative situation, and it probably was, but at the end of the day, it helped me realize and come to terms with who I was and what
Mm.
I'm capable of doing, and so on and so forth. So
And we all need that. We all need those moments of like having that fire to get us to realize what we
yeah,
want, right? So I
that's
always
right.
say feedback is in the eyes of the beholder, but at the end of the day, they don't control the outcome of your career. You
No,
do,
no,
right?
that's
How
right.
you go at it. I remember somebody told me, April, you'll never be in learning and development because you're just not qualified in it. I had a HR leader tell me that. I went off and built my own learning and development company.
There you go. Right.
I was like, I could either sit there and go, she's right, and just
Yeah.
like be stuck in operations my whole life, which, by the way, in operations, all we do is train and develop and coach. So I was very confused by that. I was like, this is what I do. What do you mean?
Yeah.
But,
Well, yeah. So the bottom line, right, is that it's not what happens to you, right? It's how you react to what happens to you. And if you stay positive and believe in yourself, you're going to make whatever you want happen, right?
so then I'm assuming that, oh God, I'm in New York and you can hear the
Yeah.
sirens. I'm like, really? It's always in the middle of a live show, right? So I'm assuming that like positive mindset is very important to you then.
It is very important.
Mm,
It has to be. Otherwise, I think people will give up on things if they don't see it. And how do you stay there is that you need to know where you're going. You need to know what your goals are. You need to know, you know, 100% what your objectives are. And once you know that and you're clear on that and you've socialized that, um, then you make sure your team is aware,
mm,
and you make sure that's trickled down. And then it's not just communicating one time. It's repeating and having update meetings, maybe every quarter, to evaluate where we are in regards to those goals. And for me, once I have a target, once I have a goal, I'm just going to, push forward, because no other, there's a great feeling of when you've put a plan together that there's nothing there, and you've created something magical because of that
mm.
plan, and because of people believed in that plan, and people have agreed to follow you to achieve that goal.
This is it. At the end of the day, you just said it well, and we're going to start wrapping up in a minute, but you can't lead a team if they will not follow you.
That's right.
100%. You could be a manager and manage a team,
Yeah,
but that doesn't mean to say that you're leading a team. And there is a big difference
there
in
is a big
productivity,
difference.
mental health, and all of that, right? Like when people want to follow you.
Yeah. And I think, don't kid yourself. It's not going to happen overnight. You know what I mean? Like, there's work involved to get your team to that point. But as long as you know where you're going and you keep believing in them, then, you will get there.
Brilliant. So, what three pieces of advice would you give to somebody if they wanted to, become start moving up in their career, be a manager, become a leader, and like lead a team, or somebody that's maybe struggling with their team right now?
Okay, in regards to the with a team, I think it's definitely to, again, like what I said in the beginning, to get to know your team. make sure you get to, nobody cares how much you know until they know how much you care. Life, work, whatever. Yes, a paycheck could get them moving, but if you need them to do more than that, then you need to take the time to get to know the team. The second thing you need to do is have a plan, have a goal, and with some timelines to execute them, and you break that plan down, right? And then the third in there is like, once you have that, then to communicate that properly to your team, and follow up, follow up, follow up. So basically those are the three things I would tell them. Get to know your team, make sure you understand who your players are, and don't wait for an emergency to kind of figure out who your key players are and who can do what, right?
Yeah.
And then have your plan, make sure you've communicated that plan, and follow it up on that. And not just one time communication, multiple. If you have kids, so you know what I mean, you're going to repeat,
Yeah.
and then the last piece of that is really to, actually I kind of mix it up, but develop the plan, and then you communicate those plans. So it's really those things, three
Hmm.
things that you want to make sure that you're doing.
Yeah. And then
That's the advice.
take care of yourself, right? This
Yeah,
is just as a
100%. Yeah,
reminder for everybody. It's Mental Health Awareness Month.
yeah.
And how you feel about yourself transfers onto others. And I say, slow down this month, take a little bit more time, ask a bit more questions, and listen. Listening's free. It doesn't cost us anything other than time. And we can really connect with people more when we listen more.
100%.
Amazing. Oh, it's always a pleasure talking to you, Mike. Thank you so much for your positive energy and your insight and wisdom, and joining our show this week. It was so great to have you.
Always a pleasure, April. Always.
And I can't wait to get some feedback on you working through the workbooks with your daughter. I'm excited to hear about that. Oh, it makes me
Yeah.
happy when people buy that thing.
Awesome.
So anyway, that wraps up in another episode of The Positive Effect. My name is April Sobral. This is Mike Paul, an amazing leader. And share this with as many people as you can, and go and hit subscribe in Apple Podcasts and Spotify. And we'll see you on another episode of the Positive Effect. We'll see you soon.